It's Tuesday, April 30th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On Barnstable Today, we have our weekly chat with Chief Sonnabend, learn more about a planning meeting for downtown Hyannis parking, and Senator Sear joins us for a legislative update. Now for a look at municipal and legislative news. PFAS, man-made chemicals considered contaminants of emerging concern, are most commonly found in firefighting foams, stain and water-resistant products, non-stick products, coatings, food packaging, outdoor clothing, carpets, and leather goods. Prompted by a citizen's petition, Barnstable County has scheduled a meeting from 5 to 6:30 p.m. on May 2nd at Barnstable Town Hall. At the meeting, the county will solicit public comment and update the community on remediation efforts at the Academy property. Drug Take Back Day is a success. Look twice and save a life, and the CSOs will be back in early June. It's a cornucopia of topics today.
Plethora.
With a plethora, a myriad of topics today with Chief Sonnabend.
Good morning.
First off, good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
You had a good weekend?
Yes, I did. Did you?
It was fabulous.
Awesome.
Drug Take Back was this weekend.
Drug Take Back was this weekend on Saturday from 10 to 2. It was, I hate to say it was a great success, but because that means there's a lot of drugs. But it was successful. We had about 30 residents come in and turn in some drugs, old prescription pills and things like that, prescriptions that they had no more use for, which is good. Between that and the kiosk in the lobby, there's about 500 pounds that we're going to end up turning over to the DEA here in the next few days.
And that's 500 pounds that aren't in hands that they shouldn't be.
Or down the drain.
Or down the drain in our water
eaten by
system.
a pet or whatever have you,
Right.
going to be destroyed and taken care of.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a great program. That box is available year-round.
The kiosk is in our front lobby year-round. Just come on in. You can drop the stuff in there any time of day or night. It's 24 hours a day. Just drop it in there. But if you're the kind of that wants to come in on the official day, once a year, we do it once a year, about this time of year, every year.
Yeah.
But that kiosk is available, and you can just come in and put that stuff in there, and it gets turned in and taken care of.
Fantastic. Now let's talk a little bit. It's spring. Everybody wants to be out on the roads.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Everybody.
Saw quite a few motorcycles in the past week or so. Cyclists definitely on the roads.
A lot more out, yep.
Let's talk a little bit about safety. Motorcycles especially. People don't see them year-round, so they're not always being aware that motorcycles can get lost in a rearview mirror.
Yep.
It's lots of safety reminders there.
Always, the good saying, they always on the bumper sticker, check twice, save a life. But this really feeds into the whole distracted driving thing. That's why you can't be running around with your phone and everything else, because you got other people on the road too. You got to share that road. There's walkers, there's bicyclists, there are motorcyclists out there. And you're right, especially this time of year, everyone's all excited to get out there, and street sweepers are out there cleaning up the roads, which means people are going to want to use them more as soon as it stops raining one of these days.
Right.
So people will be out there. So as you're driving your car, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're doing so in a safe manner. But that also falls to the bicyclists and the motorcyclists as well, who have their own bad habits. So everyone just needs to stay in their lane, do what they're supposed to do, and things work out well.
Let's talk a little bit about that cyclist safety. Bikes are out there. They tend to take up a little bit part of the road, but according to you and the law, they're entitled to.
A bicycle is considered a vehicle, so they are allowed to use the lane. It's suggested they stay to the right as far as possible, but they don't have to ride in the dirt. They can, if it's unsafe to be to the right, like potholes and whatever else. I mean, take a look at the edge of the road around around the state, and it's not very good. You're gonna hurt yourself driving over there. You got grates and everything else, and those skinny little tires that some of those bikes have can get stuck. So they move over a little bit into the travel lane, but they're allowed to use that travel lane to get around obstacles and things like that, and they can operate in that travel lane. They're considered a vehicle. But it's also incumbent upon them to have a little bit of courtesy as well. And because they are considered a vehicle, they're also supposed to obey the traffic laws, which means stop signs and yield signs and red lights and all that stuff. They're supposed to stop and do what any other vehicle would do. The only caveat to that is a lot of these lights nowadays are triggered by a vehicle that's sitting there. They're not necessarily on a timer. They don't just change every so often. So they're not really meant for a bicycle to trigger if they don't have that special bicycle lane there. You see it all emblazoned on
center
this,
of it,
emblazoned on the center. So they can come up, and if the light doesn't trigger in a reasonable time and it's safe to do so, they can still proceed, but they still do have to stop.
Right. And they can ride two together?
They can ride two abreast, and
Okay.
they're allowed to do that. And vehicles, just like a pedestrian, you're supposed to slow to a reasonable speed when you're passing other vehicles, including bicyclists and all that other stuff. Pedestrians, you slow down, go around in a safe manner. That doesn't mean you just go around on a blind curve or pass on a hill when you can't see over the crest. There's some basic rules here that apply to anybody else too.
Right, so we'll remind cyclists to review the rules of the road because they apply to them as well. And distracted driving, just don't.
Don't do it. Everyone's got to do their part. Pay attention. You're not on, well, maybe some of you will be on vacation, but it is, it's a serious task driving, riding a bike. You got to pay attention to what's going on.
Right. And it's that time of year, the CSOs are coming back.
CSOs are coming back.
Those fluorescent green shirts.
Just like the daffodils. They're coming
back.
back.
They're just coming back. When do they start?
They are, right now they're going through the backgrounds and everything else, but they will be starting training right on or about June 3rd. And so they'll be out hitting the streets right on or about June 10th. We try and get them out just ahead of the Father's Day car show so they can get out and get familiar with the street and know the patterns and everything else like that before they get to the big weekend. So right around June 10th, you'll see them out there.
Okay. And you're actually in, what is this, the fourth year now? They were 2015, I think the program started. This program seems to be an ability for the Barnstable Police Department to actually get some patrol officers out of this program.
Yep, it's kind of a stepping stone. We've had a few that have converted over recently to being full-time police officers, but it's not only that, we've had people that have been interested in like careers with public outreach and mental health and stuff like that get involved because this program is so heavily involved with the population that's down on Main Street, and a lot of it because of the number of social services we have here with the homeless, and even the people that aren't homeless, there's a lot of people down there that have mental health issues and stuff, so they deal with them on a regular basis. They go to some of these meetings and coffee houses and whatnot. They're in and out, they're talking to the vendors, and different merchants on Main Street as well, so they're well versed and they get a good education out there on Main Street, and so it's really helped a lot of them figure out what they're going to do for a career path as well. So
that's fantastic. Well, excellent. That was a myriad, a plethora, and a cornucopia of topics.
All the above. D, all the above.
D, all of the above. And let's just remind people, just be nice.
That's it. Be nice, take your time, and pay attention.
Excellent. Thanks, Chief. Do you live, work, shop, or dine in downtown Hyannis? Are you interested in learning about and providing feedback on potential implementation strategies to increase parking availability, enhance connections between parking facilities and downtown destinations, and improve signage? Join Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development, on May 6th at 5 p.m. right here at Town Hall. Do you live, work, shop, dine in downtown Hyannis? Find parking to be maybe a little difficult to find? Well, there's a new event that will be on Monday, May 6th. Elizabeth Jenkins, Planning and Development. Parking's always a hot button topic.
It is, and one that's been a part of the downtown Hyannis Main Street conversation for a long time. We think this is an issue that's really important, obviously, to businesses on the street, to people who visit here to come to Town Hall, whether you're a frequent visitor to Main Street or you're just a short-term visitor in the summer. Fact is, most of us still get around by car, so the parking experience is one that's really, again, important to us and become an important part of our economic development program here in Planning and Development. So, yeah, we're looking forward to an event that we're going to be hosting the public here on Monday, May 6th. May 6th.
Yep.
Yep, to talk to our community about the results of a parking study that we did a couple of years ago that really did a comprehensive inventory of parking in downtown Hyannis. And it's been a while since we completed that plan, but we've really, I think, taken some of the data that was in that initial parking study and really thought more again about the user experience. the study inventoried kind of all the parking spaces that we have available in Hyannis. We really want to focus on, again, sort of what we have the most control over, which are those publicly owned parking lots and the experience that our customers and our visitors have when they visit those lots.
Right. And there's a balance as well. So, Main Street employs an enormous amount of people. Town Hall alone employs a lot of folks. We don't necessarily carpool in here. So when we're talking about parking and parking spaces, one of the things as a traveler that I find is signage. There doesn't seem to be enough telling folks where those hidden lots are, right? Because I go by Ocean Street lot, even though it's a metered lot, it's almost always empty, but it's not that much money to actually get a spot there.
Right, so the purpose of this effort is to really think about strategies for implementation to manage parking demand. So we know there's a lot of demand right here on this core of Main Street, right around Town Hall, the shops there. There's a lot of activity here. It's got good connection to the harbor. It's a convenient location. And we have a good, sort of a good amount of public parking available. But you're right, people aren't distributed in the right way. If you're going to be staying here a long time, ideally you're in a more remote lot and you're parking, a little further away. If you're a customer, again, who's looking to go out to dinner or grab a quick cup of coffee and something to eat, you want that convenience. So how do we create that balance in this downtown core? That's something that we're looking at. And certainly one of the strategies that has been very effective for other communities and that we've heard on Main Street could be improved is the signage, letting people know where to park. If you're coming downtown, here are the lots that are available to you. Communicating with our major employers. I mean, in the summer, any one restaurant on Main Street could have maybe 30 employees. I mean, that's a big chunk of our public parking lot. So how do we get businesses to work together? How do we, as a town, partner to put some of those to put those employees in some of the less obvious parking spaces and increase the capacity of those lots for customers? And sort of around that is how do we really make sure we're thinking about the whole experience that you have when we come downtown? Because if we're going to ask people, again, to maybe park a little bit further away and walk, how do we make sure that environment that we're hosting them in is safe and inviting and well lit? And again, you have the signage. If you're a visitor, you know where you're going. So this study, while really Monday's meeting is mainly focused on those parking implementation strategies, there's a piece of this that intends to look at the sort of public, what we call the public realm, that's plainer jargon, but those sort of public spaces, the streets and open spaces, and how they invite people in to our community and make them feel welcome as well.
So the folks that, for the consultant for the town is internationally known. They're somebody pretty big out there. So working with them, what's been that experience?
Yeah, so we have a great team. Our consultant team is from Nelson Nygaard. They did our initial study. They had some turnover, we had some turnover, so we're really kind of taking a fresh look at this. Our partner, sort of our lead partner in this, has been one who's worked with communities across Massachusetts, including Salem, to actually put parking plans into action. So we're really lucky to have somebody who has that experience and has sort of brought a new take into this parking management plan. So they're going to be here again on May 6th, 5 o'clock in the hearing room to sort of present what we know, our inventory, and then some of our options in terms of implementation going forward. So we'll be doing that together, again, sort of in a presentation type format, led by Matt Smith, our consultant from Nelson Nygaard. And then we're going to break it out sort of down into an open house that really will let people interact with them and from the team of planning and development, talk about their issues. Sort of we'll have some different options for people to be able to weigh in and give public input. So we really hope it to be sort of an interactive experience for folks.
So this meeting at May 6th at 5 p.m., what's the kind of like follow-up of this? If I can't, obviously Channel 18 will have this, so you'll be able to see this presentation. But what's the kind of the follow-up to this meeting?
Sure. So I think our next steps out of this are, again, this is the first time we're sort of regrouping again on this effort, making sure that we understand what the community priorities are, that frankly we're tackling things that are most important to people first. So that's really our intention here, is to explain to people the different strategies that we can use, we think, to manage parking demand, and start to get an idea of where those priorities lie. So if people can come on the 6th, that's fantastic. We'd love to come talk to you and talk about this issue. If not, we're developing some online ways to put your feedback in. We know everybody can't always make it to the public meeting, but certainly Liz Hartsgrove and I are always available and committed to talking to businesses about how parking impacts them. And then you know, in terms of planning for implementation, moving towards implementation. So again, working towards those strategies, again, ones that we feel are prioritized. And then thinking about, you know, in terms of next steps, you know, how do we evaluate rolling out that implementation? So, you know, one of those things is, you know, that's sort of always been on the table, and I know a lot of businesses come to me and say, you know, where is the town at on this, is the idea of pricing parking, you know, putting in meters or paying for lots. So, you know, sort of out of this, evaluating how people feel about that and what's an implementation timeline for this. We're probably not going to hit this season, obviously, because it's May, but but thinking, you know, if this is something really important to people, how do we make a plan to roll that out? Or if it's not, how can we sort of implement other strategies to get us closer to the community's goals?
Anything else you want folks to know?
No, I think you're looking forward, hopefully, to seeing everybody on May 6th, 5 o'clock in the hearing room. And if not, please reach out to Planning and Development. We have a project webpage set up on the Planning and Development Department homepage, so you can go and take a look at that 2017 study. Again, we'll have the video posted if you're not able to make it. Hopefully some ways to interact after the fact, and please stay in touch. We know this is an important issue, again, sort of to residents and our business community, and we look forward to making some progress on it.
Excellent. Sounds like a plan.
Great.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Senator Sear joins us in studio to share updates from Beacon Hill and some of the early legislative work this year. So many things going on at Beacon Hill. Julian Sear is here with an update. Julian.
Always good to be with you, Paula.
You as well. Things are really crazy on Beacon Hill. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot going on.
Going on.
Some important early steps in the legislature. So a legislative process, the calendar, it's often an iterative one, right? So we start the session looking at a whole host of bills. The budget's something that's really substantial that I'll talk about in a moment. But we've taken some action on some pretty important pieces of legislation that have passed both the Senate and the House, have been sent to the governor, and they're really about making sure that we're promoting children, families, health care. So we passed 2 bills in recent weeks. One bans a practice known as conversion therapy, which is a pretty coercive practice that tries to really hurts young people around trying to interfere with their gender identity or sexual orientation. This is something I've really led on, and I'm one of 2 out members in the Senate. There's 7 out members in the legislature. It was something that had passed the legislature near unanimously last session in both chambers, but we just, on a process perspective, we just didn't get it done. So we took that vote. It's been signed into law by the governor. Another thing we've done is what's called lift the cap on kids. So there's a really arcane, really unfair component in law as it relates to supports for families, that for really poor families that the state gets. And it essentially penalizes families that have more than one kid. If you have another kid and you're receiving state assistance, really something that has hurt over 8,000 families in the state. The House took this up, passed it unanimously. The Senate took it up. We passed it, I think, there was 1 dissenting vote, so near unanimously. Sent to the governor. The governor's actually vetoed this, which is something we're not happy about, but I expect you're going to see us move in the next few weeks to override that veto. Okay. Democrats and Republicans in the legislature support that. And then we've been working to fill some gaps around funding and support One area where I've really led on is on heating assistance for families.
Right.
And so we provided $30 million in additional resources to help people who receive fuel assistance, which is just so essential, especially here on Cape Cod. We've got so many people living on fixed incomes. You know, maybe they have some sort of older heating systems that are using, you know, either oil likely, and so that's helping them out as well.
Excellent. And let's just go back a little bit to the lift on the
The lift the cap on kids?
lift the cap
Yep.
on the kids. Explain to people, it goes to the governor's desk, he vetoes it, and it comes back to,
Yep.
does it have to come back and do anything else there, or is it just a simple vote?
So it requires a 2/3 vote,
Okay.
A 2/3 majority to override the governor's veto. It needs to start in the House, and then it
Okay.
comes to the Senate from a process perspective. This past, I think in the House, there was 8 dissenting votes on lifting the cap on the kids. So the majority of the Republicans, including all the members of the Cape delegation who are Republican, voted in favor of lifting the cap. And so, and in the Senate, we had one person who didn't vote for it, and the other 39 did.
Right.
So clearly there's super majorities there. Even if a
Right.
few people peel off, this will happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned budget. That's
Budget, sort of the biggest thing we do.
Right.
The House actually, last week they released a draft budget. Amendments have been filed this week. They're looking at all those amendments. And then next week, the week after school vacation, the House will go in. They'll debate their budget, a whole host of priorities from everything that's really, really big, including really specific regional priorities. Then they pass it over to the Senate. We'll take this up, our budget up in May. We usually finish right before Memorial Day in time for the long weekend. There's a conference committee, reconciles the budget, and we have something in early July.
right. Last year it did go a little further.
It does, there's a little bit of a habit of going a little further.
Right.
From a process perspective, there's a continuing budget that's passed, and so
Right.
it doesn't hurt services. What gets tricky is how do we make sure we're getting dollars out? Say we brought resources to, you know, the town of Barnstable, to Channel 18, right? Getting those resources to you can be a little bit of a problem when we have those delayed budgets.
All right. And when we talk about money, education always comes to the bubbles right to the
So
top.
this is a big issue that there's been a lot of work on, but I think we're actually going to do something on soon. So there was a commission, a foundation budget review commission, looking basically at the formula for how we fund public schools in the Commonwealth. There's 4 or 5 pieces that have been identified where there's gaps. That includes health insurance costs for school districts, and includes special ed costs, early language. I'm sorry. I'll have to edit this out.
Early learning?
No. It's why am I having English language
English
learners?
okay.
And also, how do we count poor kids in our schools? So there's been a whole effort on this, and the Education Committee, which I now sit on, is taking up a bill. I think we'll expect to have a bill maybe in early summer and take something up before the summer break. This is really important for our schools here. When I talk to our school superintendents, what are some of the big challenges they face? Special ed costs, English language learners, particularly in Barnstable, that we've had a real expansion of that population.
10% increase.
Yeah, significant. And the state really hasn't followed up with resources and dollars to support that.
Right. And the formula itself, there's always been talk that the Cape seems to kind of fall by the wayside. There's some mismatched understanding of how we're funded.
Yes, and in part because the formula takes into account property values, or which for us is very inflated, not based on the people who live here, but because of all the second and third homeowners that we have here. So that's something we're really sinking our teeth into. The Senate chair of the Education Committee will be coming to the Cape and meeting with the superintendents and teachers and stakeholders and parents. We're also trying to look at avenues around a rural school aid funding formula, and also making sure that we have some flexibility in how schools count truly the neediest kids. So the best way that I think to do that is through the free and reduced lunch program, which I think gives you a real accurate snapshot of the need in the community.
Right, and some of our schools here on the Cape actually top the state in that.
Yep.
DY, I think, comes to mind right off the bat.
Yep,
for
certainly.
that, so.
Yeah, particularly some of the schools.
Right.
Yep.
So anything else that you?
A lot's going on. So I was also really proud to have led the relaunch of an employee ownership initiative in the Commonwealth. This is something that I've been leading in concert with the Senate President. Employee ownership, there's pretty significant advantages that actually date back to federal tax reform in the 1980s under President Reagan and Speaker Tip O'Neill to provide incentives for people to have employee ownership. We really think this is a way that can help build up wealth. And it can continue some of the, think of your favorite kind of iconic Cape business. It can really help keep those businesses continuing when someone wants to go sell that business. Selling to their employees is an option. So we secured $250,000 in recent budgets to restart the program, and we had a kickoff just 2 weeks ago at the State House, and it'll mean, hopefully mean some good things.
It will. Succession has always been an issue with family businesses here
of course.
on the Cape.
And I know this personally, right?
Right.
And part of my attraction to employee ownership has been, I grew up in my family's restaurant. We had it for 28 years. When my parents looked to sell, they were trying to figure out, all right, how do we make this work? They did look to sell to their employees. They couldn't figure it out, and so they went another avenue. But I think that. I think there's some real value in that, and I'm really encouraged that the state is going to be making an investment in this. We give, if you look at the broader state budget, and if you look at the tax credits that we have, large corporations really benefit from the system. We don't do a lot for small businesses, and so this is something I really hope we can, is doing something, especially for the small and medium-sized businesses, which here on Cape Cod, this is the bread and butter of our economy.
Right, the backbone. Excellent.
Great. Thanks, Paula.
Thank you, Jillian. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.